mom passed away unexpectedly, and it was, for me, this medicine has nothing short of saved my life. There was things could have, at that point in my life, could have gone one way or another, and I was just so overwhelmed with grief.
Die Medizin, von der Carolina hier spricht, ist ein Gebräu zweier Pflanzen aus dem Amazonas-Regenwald und wird von den Schamanen vieler indigener Stämme seit Jahrtausenden als Heilmittel und als Portal zu den höheren Dimensionen verwendet. Herzlich willkommen zu einer ganz besonderen Folge von 1000 First Steps, deinem Podcast für das Größte in dir. Ein Interview-Special über Ayahuasca und die spannende Frage, was die Pflanze übers Leben lehrt. Mein Name ist Jakob Horvath und ich habe meine ersten Erfahrungen mit Ayahuasca auf meiner Weltreise in Kolumbien und einige Wochen später dann in Peru gemacht. Beide Male in sehr traditionellen Settings im Dschungel, nur eine kleine Gruppe von Menschen, die da teilgenommen haben und Schamanen, die mit ihrer Musik, ihrem Gesang, dem Rascheln ihrer Blätter den Spirit der Pflanze besungen haben und mich damit in eine Welt eingeladen haben, die mir bis zu diesem Zeitpunkt völlig fremd war. Naja, und damit haben sie einen Raum geöffnet, in dem sich mir das Leben in einer unglaublichen Tiefe und in einer Verbundenheit gezeigt hat, wie ich das bis dato noch nicht erlebt habe. Diese Erfahrungen waren für mich die Initialzündung für meine spirituelle Reise, die dann begonnen hat. Ich bin in diesen Nächten zum Beispiel zum Vegetarier geworden und noch dazu sehr neugierig auf mehr. In meinem Buch Weltnah habe ich dem Thema ein ganzes Kapitel gewidmet und auch euren E-Mails habe ich entnommen, dass auch ihr euch für dieses Thema interessiert und darüber gerne mehr erfahren wollt. Und deshalb freue ich mich so sehr, euch heute Carolina und Pedro vorzustellen. Die beiden haben das Ayahuasca Retreat hier in Costa Rica organisiert, an dem ich vor kurzem teilgenommen habe. Die beiden haben 10 Jahre lang in Peru gelebt, davon 3 im Amazonas-Regenwald, haben dort mit dem Stamm der Shipibo gelebt, gearbeitet, viel von den Alten und Weisen dieses Stammes gelernt und mitgebracht. Pedro und Carolina sind 2 so besondere, so liebevolle Seelen, dass es in dem Interview um so viel mehr geht, als nur um eine medizinische Pflanze aus dem Dschungel. Es geht um die Liebe, die wir alle in uns tragen, um Verletzungen aus der Vergangenheit und darum, wie wir diese tiefste Essenz in uns entfalten können.
So many times we're like singing to someone's inner child that we see as just like a wounded, afraid child. And you sing to them and you show them, like, look at how special you are. Look at this God-child miracle that you really are and that all of this light that's here present.
Wir sprechen auch über die jahrtausendealten Weisheiten, die durch die Pflanzen transportiert werden und auch darüber, warum das richtige Setting einer solchen Zeremonie so wichtig ist und warum das Falsche sehr gefährlich sein kann.
It's a path that takes a lot of courage and a lot of strength. It's like we can have some of these most beautiful experiences with this medicine and then we have really, really hard times.
Das Interview habe ich übrigens auch als Video aufgenommen. Du findest es auf meinem YouTube-Kanal unter dem Link in den Shownotes. Auch dabei im Interview die extrem lauten Zikaden im Hintergrund. Irgendwie wollten sie dann noch ein bisschen mitmischen und für die passende Kulisse sorgen. Naja, jedenfalls wünschen die Zikaden und ich dir jetzt wertvolle Einblicke in diese mysteriöse und unglaubliche Welt von Ayahuasca und viel Freude mit dem Interview mit Carolina und Pedro.
Welcome to the podcast, Carolina and Pedro.
Thank you.
It's so good to have you here. And so good to be here in your space.
Yes.
Your beautiful land here, the house that you've rented close to Uvita. You're overlooking like the land and the ocean and the jungle. Now you can also hear some animals in the background. So I'd say that's a perfect environment also for the work that you're doing, for your passions that you're living, and the love that you're sharing in your ceremonies, in your retreats. And I'd love to talk with you guys about your story, your journey so far, which I feel is very, very fascinating. Your time in Peru, your time in the Amazon rainforest, what you've learned from the Shipibo tribe, and what you're sharing nowadays, and how you live your life. So yeah, I'm excited, and I'm looking forward to this conversation. Let's start. Take us back. Take us, me and the listeners, back on your journey to a time when everything was completely different than today for you guys. Before you've met, maybe even, or maybe to the time, around in this time when you met. I was in Peru, right? Whoever wants to start.
Go ahead, my love.
Do you want us to share like maybe what brought us even to that meeting point in Peru?
Yeah.
That's
a good point to start.
Because it was kind of these individual journeys, that drew us from opposite sides of the world to meet in the Amazon forest. So I had known about ayahuasca for several years, but at that time it was in Los Angeles, it was very underground, there was like, you had to get in somehow, and so that was where I had my first ceremony. And it really, my mom passed away unexpectedly, and that was what really was the push that got me into that first ceremony. And it was, for me, this medicine has nothing short of saved my life. There was things could have, at that point in my life, could have gone one way or another, and I was just so overwhelmed with grief and with all of the things that I was needing to heal. A lot of things from trauma in childhood, from sexual abuse to alcoholism and things like this. And so, I felt like I was like a bubble that was about to pop, And so when I sat in that first ceremony, it wasn't even that strong, but I just cried the whole time because this teacher I had been seeking for so long, I knew I had found, and I knew I had found it in this plant medicine, which was really a surprise to me because I had done every hypnosis and therapy, and I'd done a lot of different things. And so for me, it was like, I want to go to the wisdom keepers of this medicine. Like, where do I go? And that was what really brought me to the Amazon to work with Shipibo. So that was really the push to go there. And I went for a 12-day group and just knew that was where I was going. And I had a very set up, very successful life on paper in Los Angeles that I just walked away from, and people thought I was really losing my mind. But I just, it was just like, there was just nothing that could stop this calling to go in that direction. And so I went back for a 3-month work exchange. And at that point they asked me to stay and wanted to support me in doing dietas and to get to the point where I could help facilitate the groups. So that was what really brought me there. And it was when I was going back to train to facilitate that Pedro showed up.
And Pedro showed up. Why did Pedro show up?
Well, to take it further back, for my backstory, so I was a musician, like a conscious lyricist, MC, like a rapper, and making music and doing that for a long time in Australia, and also like a street artist, which started to become, as my spiritual path continued, I was always on a spiritual path and researching and hungry for knowledge and information. And I think I kind of got to a limit in Australia, where I'm from, where I felt like I wasn't able to connect, like Carolina said, with the real wisdom keepers. And I know there are in Australia, but I wasn't finding inroads for that specifically. And so some friends of mine and I went in the year 2012, went on a adventure to the Americas, which just felt like, I'd had my Saturn return, it was like a big project I'd done that kind of came to a close, and it was like I got to this point where I was really ready for something totally different. You know, what I just worked on had kind of finished, and I was just like looking for some adventure. And so the plan was to go travel through the Americas and work traditionally with plant medicines to take the spiritual journey out of the kind of ad hoc experimental place into a more considered and traditional format. So, you know, and so it ended up taking me to the Amazon jungle through Mexico and working with peyote and eventually with ayahuasca in the Amazon. And and so I did a 3-month work exchange at a center there where Carolina and I met. And when I first drank ayahuasca, it was so powerful, but it felt like all of the things that I'd been intellectually understanding in my kind of spiritual view of the world was given to me in an experiential way that I'd never had. And so then I could actually experience the truth of these things, not just to believe it, but to know it because I'd experienced it. And so for me, it was just like integrating years of study and interest and just embodying. And it felt like so much like my soul needed to get to that point for like the jump off for the next part of my life. And all of this like felt like my soul was coming back and all of this parts coming together for a whole nother journey that opened up then. So I was already had my bags packed. I didn't really have anywhere else to be. And so when Carolina and I met, which is, I mean, we could do the whole interview to talk about such a beautiful story that was too, but we,
make it short.
Well, I mean, I don't know if I can do it short, but anyway, it was when we came together, it was like we were both in this place where I feel like we'd done this healing for ourselves to the point where it was the first time that I felt really complete in myself and really like a whole person. And I thought, I'm so happy just to be me. For the first time, I really found self-love and such gratitude for my life that I could do anything in the world. And it was like, I'm totally free and my own master. And then we always laugh because then 2 weeks later, it's like, and here's your partner, you know? And so it was like getting to this point of feeling complete in myself, and Carolina going through the same process of her healing, that then when we got to that point, we were able to meet for a higher level of relationship than we'd previously experienced. And this is one that's lasted through all of this amazing journey that we've been on with the medicine ever since.
So beautiful. And it's also something that one can feel. Now I've been staying with you for 5 days, I think, and very close on the other side of the pool and watching you, how you having conversations with each other, but also how you having conversations with your kid, with your 6.5-year-old daughter, and how much love and understanding and compassion there is. It's really something that doesn't really come only from intellectual knowing, but really from experiencing with the heart. And I would really like to dive deeper into how ayahuasca particularly has helped you on this journey, because there's so like, it's such a mystery also, I feel. And it's also, every experience is different. And I remember my first ayahuasca ceremony in Colombia, and it resonated a lot what you just said with, I experienced myself as being free from my doubts, my negativity, my fears, my ego-driven behavior and all these things. And it was just pure purity. And it was like I connected with that higher self, with that purer version of myself. And I was so connected to the nature, to the others in the ceremony, even to my people back at home, like 10,000 kilometers away. So that really made me so curious to understand and to learn more, because I felt, okay, this is a potential that I obviously carry inside of myself, and that has now been released through the master plant. It has now been kind of awakened, but how can I really go to that place in my everyday life without having to drink ayahuasca? which is actually what led me on my spiritual path. And I'm curious to hear how ayahuasca, how this journey evolved. But maybe let's start with clarifying what ayahuasca actually is. I think most of our listeners have heard about it. It also was topic in the podcast already a couple of times. But maybe from your perspective, what is ayahuasca?
Yeah. Well, it's a spirit, just to make it as simple as possible. It's a beautiful spirit, that I really believe our Mother Earth gave us as this gift for us humans, to do exactly what you just said, to reconnect with that true divine nature that's inside of us, And so the longer we've been doing this, the more it's waking up to see that we're actually perfect, that this is our truth, that we are pure beings, and we go through these life experiences to live out our karma or to do whatever it is that our soul needs to keep evolving. Yeah. So it's, but it's, for us, it's one of the real specific medicines that brings us right to the root of things, so we have people come all the time with depression or anxiety, and a lot of people don't know why, and so it's like all of these things just become symptoms, worries, doubts, fears, all these things, but there's always a reason. This is what we're always kind of like, and tell us about your childhood, or and tell us about your ancestry. There's always something at the root that is waiting to be discovered, and so many of us just develop coping mechanisms to get through life. Yeah. Because we can't just sit around all day and curl up in a ball, so we figure it out, and we get up and we go to work and we do those things, so it's really about taking the time to say, okay, what's here, when we drink medicine, it's almost like we put ourselves under a magnifying glass and we can see things in a different way. Whether it's memories coming up, whether it's sensations, whatever it is. And it helps us to just process those things at a deeper level, with so much care. And so, people use the word shadow work a lot with ayahuasca. And, the way that we've approached it is when we can hold those parts of ourselves with so much care, with so much compassion, because the last thing shame needs is more shame, or anger needs to be, shushed and put away, so it becomes this journey of being able to actually hold these aspects of ourselves separate from our true divine nature and just witness them and give them the care. And so many things I've watched as our path has progressed into being healers and doing this work for other people is actually just being the one that sits there and witnesses without any judgment, without any shaming, and just says, I see you, I see your suffering, and then this is so much just needs that recognition, it's just like screaming at us to be seen. And so then lots of other things develop because we're not giving it the care it needs. So yeah, it's just this, and so much of it is just, it's like miracles, it's like you can't really say exactly why it happened or what it was that shifted, but it just brings such deep insights for people to really, and it's one of the only medicines as well that really does on all the levels. So our spiritual level, our mental level, our emotional level, our physical level through the purging.
Physical level.
Because we store it in our cells, and so it's like when we cleanse on all those levels, you just watch people. We watch people in 10 days all the time leave like different people. Yeah. So.
Yeah, I can totally understand what you mean. And also the physical level, when you really feel the medicine taking over and you just have to allow the process to unfold in trust also.
Yeah.
And I think this is also an important thing, why it needs a ceremony, why it needs that space held by professionals, held by medicine men, medicine women like the maestra, which is here now. You invited her all the way over from Peru, a grandmother from the Shipibo tribe. And it's such a great honor to work with her in the ceremony and to witness her, what she's doing. Like, this is amazing energy work and very hard to describe. But I I think it's a very, to those new to ayahuasca or those who may be considering doing that at some point, that it's so important to have a safe and sacred space, and to really choose wisely and carefully who you're doing it with, right?
Yeah, and the medicine's evolved in so many ways. It's being served in a lot of different ways, and by different tribes. And, with the Shipibo, with the Icaros, with the plant dietas where the songs are received that are called Icaros have a way, it's like surgery, they really can go in and really shift things and diagnose things in ways that are very potent, So I haven't I've done only a little bit of medicine work outside of Shipibo tradition, but I've always just stayed in that tradition because I found it to be the most effective at straightening everything and getting right in there. So
Pedro, from your perspective, what I heard you saying the other day, talking about Icaros and what it does and what it means to you. What does it mean to you singing an Icaros?
Well, I mean, I first experienced the energy from spirit and from the plants around drinking ayahuasca in the jungle, and it really came in my first dieta, but I could feel it coming in before that, and so my first perception of it at first was really funny because I didn't know what it was, and it was this energy that was so potent that was coming through vibrationally and kind of musically, like a kind of that I could feel in my whole body, and it was filling me up and guiding me and cleaning me and just like electrifying me with an energy that I hadn't experienced yet. And what happened is, that energy will come in, and if it meets a block, then it'll work on the block and it will unblock that. And so at some point when it's no longer finding blockages, then it will want to move through you and start to use you then as like the conductor to broadcast it out outside of yourself. So it's kind of why often people on this path, like we never had any intentions to be walk the path we're walking now as healers in this traditional way. But it's almost just like a logical step that the more that you receive of this energy that cleans you and heals you and purifies you, and over time, it's not like it just, it's a big process, but it has that potential to do a lot through you that eventually wants to then travel through you and go and help someone else.
So if I understand that right, it means you kind of channel a certain energy from the plant, from the spirit of the plant, a healing energy that you now vibrate outwards. Yeah. And you kind of give it a voice and help in the healing process of others through it.
That's right. And it comes through in melodies that just birth. And so it may feel new, but it always feels like it's a song that maybe existed for forever in a different dimension, or on a different planet or something. But it comes through and just like this beautiful song that births out. And oftentimes Icaros have been received for us with where I've like been in a really big personal struggle around something, in a big process of trying to find clarity or find some sort of a healing in my process. And then the melody and the Icaro often is born as the remedy, and it just bursts out like the theme song to the solution. And then it's often that they carry that medicine of that energy of solutions. Like they can simultaneously illuminate the problem and offer the solution. So it's this light that they work under, that's to say, here's everyone, here's illuminating your stuff, and it's okay, and here's a solution as well. And so it's like singing to people's pains and their traumas and their inner child to see what's really there, oftentimes that they don't remember what's there because it's been repressed, but to feel into it. And it happens visually then with the medicine often for many people, that you can then kind of see through the imagery of what's happening and what pain people are carrying, and then you go and give it that love and that support that it needs and help to guide it to a solution. And so it's this way, it's like this surgery that can go and just, actually take like the energy of trauma and actually watch it going out of people and sending it back up to evaporate into the light. And so this is what she said, it's like surgery, you know, and in that, and it's a joy to sing these songs. We would watch the healers when we were early on our path singing for 6-7 hours, full power, and just like so joyous. It looked like amongst everyone's, or the collection of all the heaviest thing from everyone's life. And here's these guys just so happy, just singing the joy to purify and bring balance and reharmonize it. And then now we realize, because when you're channeling that energy, it's also moving through you and nourishing you, and it's an absolute joy to carry that energy and to share it. And so it's just, this is coming through the tradition of Dieta.
And that's the also something that can be felt during the ceremonies, like the joy of you and Manuela and everybody else who is singing the Icaros, how much joy they have singing it. Just to clarify the word dieta, what we're doing right now, basically. So you go on a diet, you don't eat much, you really cut out sugar, fat, salt, alcohol, of course, and really focus on a very simple diet so that the medicine can kind of have more space in the body. Is that correct to say?
A lot of people confuse like the ayahuasca diet, like because you can say like the dieta of ayahuasca, which is to not eat salt or oils or be in sexual relations and spicy food and all of this. And then the traditional plant dieta is when you're actually working with a specific master plant. So there's plants that are considered master plants that are teachers, you know. So there's trees, there's plants, and when we're actually in that communion with those spirits, it's like we need to give them the space, the platform to speak to us, you know. So if you just do a diet and you don't give it that space and you don't follow the food restrictions, you may not even feel it, or you'll also feel like a cross from it, not feel well from it. So there's different plants require different things, and a lot of that also the healers will kind of vary of what their suggestions are, you know. So we've our main diet is with a really special tree, the tree of light, and so
the Oriole.
We've gone, you know, based on our maestra's recommendations of how we do that. But yeah, so oftentimes there's fasting, and certain things that we can't eat and that we you know, that we can't do. And the more space you create in solitude to receive, the more you receive. So it's like, you know, it's like being in a classroom and really paying attention and receiving, or like looking at your phone, you know. So it's like the more we offer ourselves, the more we receive, and it's just a really beautiful process. It really for us it was always like ayahuasca worked us at a certain level, and then when we started to bring in these other master plants, it was like shining light from another angle. So there were things that we were discovering through those teachings and the way that those plants worked that was kind of like, oh, I didn't know that was there, you know. And then it's like, so they have different things that they offer in this way.
Beautiful. Maybe we can go a little bit back in time, back to Peru, because I only stayed 2 weeks in the jungle of Iquitos, in the Peruvian rainforest, and I know it takes a lot also of dedication if you really decide to live there for a while. How was it for you to be, I think you stayed 3 years in the Amazon and then 6 or 7 years in the Sacred Valley, which is further down south in the Andes.
In the Andes, yeah.
Yeah, how was the rainforest for you?
I loved it. It was very natural for me, to be honest. I think it was once I got pregnant and had it, you know, was going through that change, that I was like, what, am I crazy? This is totally not the place for me to be. But it came very natural to me. There's like, you know, I feel like my heart and soul belongs in the jungle, you know. So it wasn't that far of a stretch. There was, you know, we lived in a hut that had no running water and had no electricity. And we'd have to walk, you know, like an hour through the jungle to get to a boat to take a boat into Iquitos, and sometimes during the rainy season you'd be in your mud boots getting stuck. You can't even move your feet through the mud. So there were like a lot of those things that just became part of our life. But yeah, I used to walk barefoot all the time in the jungle, and just like the sounds and waking up to the birds. And but yeah, I mean, it's definitely not for everyone. And yeah, I don't know if I could have like forever done it, but it was
the right time.
Yeah, at that time of my life, it didn't feel like a very hard struggle for me. Yeah.
Pedro, the Shipibo tribe, it's one of the well-known tribes in this area around Iquitos, and I think also in other parts of Peru. What have you learned from the Shipibo? What is the main, would you say, the main philosophy or the main wisdom that they share?
Yeah, I mean, they're from the Ucayali area around Pucallpa. And it happens, Iquitos became famous for medicine work with ayahuasca. And so there's a lot of centers there that employ a lot of Shipibo, but they're actually traveling a little ways from their traditional land and families to come and work there. Just to say that. But I mean, some of the main takeaways is that that they can engage with the most heaviest energies imaginable and just stay so joyful and so unattached and so simple within that I always marvel at that, and I recognize more and more over the years doing this work and studying alongside of them that it's, you know, keeping your thoughts happy and clear and taking responsibility for that, because in the medicine space, in the astral plane, you know, the currency is your energy. You know, it's not a physical place, so it's an energetic place. So the energy that you bring into that will reflect back to you in that space. And so really it becomes a way of being, to stay joyful and to stay in your heart and to stay loving, because the greatest power of healing is love, and really of just connecting with something bigger than yourself. And so I feel like some of our teachers, it's such a joy to watch them, just to have the opportunity to work alongside and to be friends with them and to be students and to feel like family with them, that they have just such incredible resilience and potency, and night after night they'll drink medicine every other night all year long. And this is, you know, abuelitas
hard to imagine, huh?
in their 60s, in their 70s, in their 80s, and some in their 90s, that are just, that's what they do. They're healers, and they drink, and they're dedicated, and they're solid, and there's no limit to staying in their heart to just do that work, you know. And so we've really had a great opportunity to work with all kinds of, with a lot of different healers, a lot of different Shipibo healers, and to experience their own unique connections to the plants and their own ikaros, because a lot of them will sing their own ikaros that come, and we found that too. We mostly sing our own ikaros that have come through our dietas, and I love that I'm so grateful that there's a lineage and a tradition that the keepers of which have been happy to actually share that tradition with people, that we can actually come in and apprentice in that line. Because I would always see people that felt like they were born with these gifts, and I've always been connected to spirit, and I always see, you know, energy, etc. And I remember a lot of times thinking, I don't think I was born with those gifts that I'm aware of. But what I've found is through dedication to this path and to these traditions and the practice of dieta and ikaros and singing and having this guidance from great teachers, that you can that I can come and learn and put in the same amount of effort, and there's no reason why I can't be a healer in that tradition if I put in the work. And so we're just so grateful to have these abuelitas that still amaze us to this day, like Maestro Manuela that's here, that it's just, there's no limit to how potent she is, and she's very giving. So she's a great teacher for us. She's really like the one that we really connect with, just so much deeper than anyone. And know there's so much to learn, and we can teach people things and we can learn things, and we're just grateful to have teachers and to have people that can support you on this path, because it's a very interesting path. And
and that holds true for every area of life, basically, right?
And they're just, for me, it's been such they're such faithful people, because we come up against things that are very hard in ceremony sometimes. Some energies are very strong and very much in a negative frequency. And with Shipibo, when we first started, it was like, you can't even start to learn until you sing. And we really saw that when we started to sing Ikaros, and then you start to actually see the energies of the space in a different way. It was kind of like, oh my gosh,
it's a revelation, huh?
And there's the part that kind of wants to go under your blanket when you're first starting, and just watching them, that it's like, no matter what it is, it's prayer. This is really what we're doing. We're really praying, and so it's having faith in the plants, it's having faith in spirit, it's having faith in all the beautiful light beings, and it's expanded much. The plants are in many ways for us kind of the bridge to the spirit world. So there's all sorts of different different spirits that we work with. We work with archangels and with Christ consciousness and star beings, and so it's like we have a whole team, that's there. It's
Get
like,
your crew.
Okay, come on, we need you guys, so it's
so in those different energies you activate through different plants, through different Ikaros.
They've just come. It's kind of like the more time we've hung out in the spirit world, the more and kind of too, we watched in our journey that as we progress, we started to see some harder and harder cases, coming our way that we're like, we didn't know what to do with, and then it was kind of like, okay, who's going to help, and then it really started to
Help me, please.
But this is where so many, like the first diet I did with Rose, like Mary Magdalene came and opened my rose diet. She showed me the frequency of the rose and what it could do, and I was
is
like,
one of the highest frequencies.
Yes, I'm dieting rose now, and it was like just this beautiful experience, But it was like at a time where it was like, I need more support, and the support comes, but it's through this faithfulness, they don't ever stop singing. They just keep going. They keep going, and and you get through it, and the light always comes.
The only way out is through.
Yeah.
And maybe you can share, because I've heard people being healed from like strong addictions. People that were healed from very serious diseases and injuries. Can you share some of your maybe experiences of some of the most powerful transformations and healings that you have witnessed during your ceremonies?
Well, there's been a lot, for sure. But I mean, we've, I can think of a number of different cases with addiction, especially, with drug addiction. And again, for us, it's kind of like, what got you to the point that you were escaping into addiction, So again, it was kind of like, let's try to look for the root of this, and to really give the care to that aspect of yourself, and whatever it is that happened that encouraged you to check out, because it really is just a way to disassociate.
So you heal the root cause, and then the symptoms are gone, like the addiction. The addiction would be a symptom then.
We worked with one guy who had a really strong addictions, and actually right before the retreat ended up relapsing, and kind of told us as he came, and then but his life has completely changed. He's like doing so amazing now, and no more of any of that, really turned his life around. But it was like, through that support of cleaning with the plants, So yeah, there's and even with physical illness, you know, I had tons of physical illnesses when I was from childhood all the way through, and it was always something. There was always something going off, you know, whether it was candida or I had major reproductive problems. I had all these things, and like it just kind of all went away. Like it would seem like it was a miracle, but it's also, we look at it like the physical body is just letting us know something's not right, you know. So it's like it will start to manifest in many different ways, and for some people it manifests as emotional problems, as mental problems. Some people manifest it in their physical health, you know. So again, this is like where we hit it on all levels, and things just will start to find their balance again. Oftentimes, it's really not uncommon that we watch people recover from physical illnesses once everything else just starts to balance itself out.
Yeah, and migraine, sometimes autoimmune diseases and things. And what I would add to that is that it's when you can get to the root of something, you know, like if you have a trauma and it's kind of stuck in there, like some impact emotionally or something that was... you didn't know what to do with that energy, but it was really strong and you absorbed it, you know, even if you just kind of reflecting it from someone around you, you know, reflected onto you, then it can get stuck. And that energy then, you know, if it can't find its way out emotionally, if it can't integrate into the greater nervous system, then it stays as a block. And then if that then is like an energetic knot, then over time that maybe becomes a physical knot and a blockage. And so it's like we're this light body, but when the light body sustains injuries, then it goes out through the density, you know, until it's in the physical body and a block, and in the emotional body and in the mental body. And you can see how it's all related from these things. And so when you can come in through the light body and see things on that level, even the little symptoms that could be like a migraine, that's like a symptom of it, but it's also like carrying, it's the little help that's coming out, help, you know, of something that could be an inner child thing, or like a trauma from childhood, for example. So when you can learn to work with the symptoms, which are like the cries for help, and you can follow that down deeper into the roots, you know. And the more people that we work with, that we've you know, witnessed the transformation of just so many kinds of illness, you know. There's no limit of what you can heal with this path, and this seeing yourself on such a deep level, that often when you just recognize what's at the root and see that and acknowledge it, accept it, you know, find forgiveness, find understanding, bring the care and the love that was lacking, the support, to feel that support. And so many times we're like singing to someone's inner child that we see as just like a wounded, afraid child. And you sing to them and you show them, like, look at how special you are. Look at this God-child miracle that you really are, and that all of this light that's here present, that's all supporting you, and you're safe and you're protected. And I'm always pledging personally, like, I've got your back, you know. And it's like this time travel thing where when we can see our inner child, where it was hurt, and go into that with what we know now, that, okay, now I'm grown, now I'm safe, you know, I'm not exposed to whatever dangers I was once afraid of. And then you can hold that space. Then as we care for ourselves as the children in the way that they needed that care but weren't able to receive, or wasn't available for them, then they get the healing they need and the medicine of feeling that love. And we're also embodying that love that we give to ourselves. So we're healing ourselves as a child and embodying the remedy as adults. And that's what turns like the poison into the remedy. You know, this is what turns the trauma, the shadow into the light, and the weakness into the strength. And then once you heal that, like, we're all made of our medicine is from everything that we've healed. Because if I've healed something so thoroughly that I'm like, I'm totally good with that. It's not any weak point, like anything. I'm like, yes, I've looked at that and I've learned so much and I'm grateful for that experience. Then you carry that medicine. And so it's, you know, it's shining these things down at the roots, and they're all like really beautiful soul lessons for everyone to learn, you know. And so it's honoring every person, and whatever their experience is, whatever their trauma, whatever their imbalance, whatever their situation is, just honoring that it's all like a great blessing and teaching that is available within that, if they can find their way to the root of it. And so it's approaching it from that level, and then when those lessons are understood and integrated and it's healed at the root, it just you know, you imagine if you've got weeds in your garden, you keep cutting them back and they keep growing back, you pull it out at the root and that's it, it's done. It's done. So it's so much about, you know, you don't always see the root at the beginning. You see the leaves and you, wow, look through the leaves at the branches, and you know, you can see the same patterns in the branches in below, and it helps you to learn. So
that is so touching what you just said, and I could also feel like how you are touched by what you're saying, because you are sharing and expressing it with so much gratitude also for the work that you're able to do. And a question that came up was, are you ever done with that work? I mean, you have done many, many diets. I have done a couple of ceremonies, and it's my first diet. But there are people out there having done hundreds of ayahuasca ceremonies. Would you say you ever come to a point where you don't need the medicine anymore, where you have healed completely, or where you can maybe even embody the spirit in a way that you don't need to drink the plant anymore, but you just have it in you and you can kind of work with it whenever you want?
Yeah, I mean, her spirit's always available. I feel like once you drink medicine, it's like you've been connected in a way that, you know, it's like you were saying at the start, like, how do I keep that when I saw myself, you know, as like your higher self? And it's really, for me, it's like once you would touch those places and we see it, there's like it's almost like a muscle memory. It's like, I know that that's possible, and I know that that's what I can embody. And so for some people, they only drink ayahuasca once, you know, some people come to one retreat with us and that's it. And that's like what they needed. And maybe they go in a different direction. But the spiritual path for anyone is never over, you know? So it's like, it depends who you are and what you're seeking in this journey you're on, you know? So we're still learning. We'll always be students of this path. You know, it's not like there's, and I always say this to people, like, how many ceremonies is this going to take, you know, before I'm good? And I was like, you know, there is no finish line. Everything is a step in the right direction, you know? So it's certain things that, like, I can remember having like a ceremony where I was like, that is done. Like, I'm done and that's it, you know? And then there's things that took years, you know, years of deeper levels of forgiveness, or deeper, you know, it's, as we've said, like, over these last years, it feels like we've learned some like really big lessons, and they've always keep coming back to love. And it's like, I've already learned this lesson, right? But it's these deeper embodiments of love, these deeper embodiments of compassion, you know? So there's a, you know, it just depends what you're doing, you know? So it's not so common for me anymore that things come up about my childhood and things like this. It's much more kind of present and moving forward, and you know, constant evolving and connecting to greater forces, and to being able to help others, you know. So it really depends on the person, and it depends what the person comes with, you know. So certain souls carry a pretty heavy karmic load, and they may need deeper, more concentrated work with the medicine to get to a place where they feel good, you know, and other people don't, and they, you know, will sit however long they choose or feel called to. But it's a path that takes a lot of courage and a lot of strength, you know. It's like we can have some of these most beautiful experiences with this medicine, and then, you know, we can have really, really hard times, you know. And like I've been brought to my knees a number of times wondering, like, is this actually helping? Is it making me worse, you know? Because this is the way healing goes, is that oftentimes we feel worse before we feel better. It's always the moment where we're like, I'm never going to get through this. That is the moment where it's ready to go, you know? And then that's, so it takes a lot of faith, a lot of trust, a lot of, courage, a lot of like determination for yourself, you know, of like, I always tell people you have to choose yourself over and over again in this work. You have to choose your like highest vision of yourself and your well-being, especially for the people who have very difficult times in this work that are carrying a lot of trauma, you know. So yeah.
Beautiful answer to that question. Thank you.
And often things have to get to a crisis point where you say, I'll do anything to change this. And then it's like, okay, now you're ready to do what it takes to actually change your own patterning, the way you approach things. But sometimes it just has to go as hard as it has to. It's like, are you ready to change? No? Okay, let's turn up. You ready to change? You know, and when we really can connect, we can get these subtle messages that maybe you don't need to drink ayahuasca because all the information is there and it's all available to you. And you just, you see the subtle things in life and you learn from them. But if you don't catch that, let's just turn it up a bit, you know, and it gets more and more intensified until it, like the whole world is screaming at you to help you to see the thing that you need to change. So ayahuasca is just like a, you know, one path of infinite roads going to the same place, but it's one that's just very effective for like how mental we've become because it can help to break the mind in a way that for me, I would try to meditate and the things that I couldn't even get to, like trying so hard, I didn't have the training or the knowledge or the practice or the patience or anything. Yeah. But then with ayahuasca, it would dig so deep into things that I didn't even know were even there in the subconscious and pull them up and put it so in front of my face that I can't even look at anything else. And so that was like an example of just, I would go into ceremony and everything I would work on was so beyond my conscious mind and anything I could have intentions to work on. Yeah. So I would just go in just show me. I'm just going to listen and try and collaborate and learn from that and work with spirit and this other higher version of myself, higher consciousness within me that's also being supported by other higher consciousness beings. And
I liked how you just said that it's just one of many paths, an infinite number of different paths. And if you go to Asia, if you go to India and you kind of dive deeper into yoga philosophy and yoga tradition, and they will tell you different approaches, which ultimately lead to the same purpose, like to heal oneself and to awaken to the greater forces that we are all surrounded with and connect with the universe and with nature. And learn to live in a more harmonious and balanced and connected and loving way. And I talked to a shaman actually for a podcast interview, an Austrian shaman. Very beautiful way she described her teachings. And she doesn't work with medicine. Like she works with, which as she described it, the inner translation and how to learn, how to feel and see and understand what life offers you in different moments and then work with it internally. And she said ayahuasca is a taxi, not in a judgmental way at all, but she said ayahuasca takes you from A to B and then you can explore B, but then you ultimately have to come back to A. And there's some other understanding also in shamanic traditions that say learn how to drive so that you don't need the taxi anymore. Yeah, I kind of liked that explanation, and I like that it comes down now to what you just said. It's a guide, it's a spirit, it helps you, but it's not what you definitely need. Yeah,
right? Yeah. It also, like on a little bit of another angle though, it does, like, in order to learn to drive, sometimes we need to. You
need somebody who teaches you to drive.
Or to like take out all the stuff out of the car so there's room to sit in it, to be able to drive. Okay. So if somebody's like, I always say with trauma, it's like viewing the world through a whole different lens, a whole different filter, and I can watch that in myself, my relationships with people, how I would view situations. Completely changed as I dug deeper into my traumas and healing them. So it's also there is actual real energies being cleared out, lines being straightened. For many women, like connections to good masculine energy, a lot of those lines get really crossed, you know? And so like there can be so many experiences that it's like, how do I actually even take the first step when I'm just so congested with whatever this is, you know? So there is something, you know, and then it's like, well, what do we do with everything that we learn in ceremony? Because it can be, you know, I know people who've done hundreds of ceremonies, and it's kind of like, you're like, well, what are you getting out of this? You know, you can see this in some people, but it's how do we actually take all of that and apply it to our life, you know, and apply it to our relationships. And this is where we've seen over time, having not only good, strong healers in ceremony, but good facilitation of people who can help you to open your perspective about your experience and help just to offer, you know, well, a different way of looking at things, or guide you to those answers within yourself. Because without that, you know, ayahuasca can show us all sorts of visions and things that we could become very fixated that we think we understand it, you know, and then in our own context. But having people who have a lot of experience that can kind of open it up for you can make a huge impact on that, and then how you apply that in your life outside of ceremony. So,
and I can totally confirm that through my own experience. What I shared in the beginning, like it was the opening up to those higher dimensions, to those greater realities, that made me curious enough to go and ask bigger questions, and that brought me into yoga, and that brought me into meditation. But it was that initial opening of the door. Of the gate, if you will. So for everybody listening, and I guess it's some of them who got very, very curious, and maybe want to try that for themselves. What are the most important recommendations and tips and advices you can give if somebody goes on the path and starts to seek out a shaman, a healer, a maestro, a maestra? What is important when you look for a place to do it, and what should you take care of?
Well, I think going off of recommendations, like, so if you know somebody who's had a good experience somewhere, that can be like one of the best leads to follow. I personally, I don't even like to sit in large ceremonies, you know, so I do think that it's supportive for people to be, you know, in ceremonies of like no more than, I don't know, 10 to 13 people. So, you know, even if there's really strong support, it's still energy. Yeah. There's still that number of people all releasing and going through their process. So, so I think to look for smaller things that are happening, recommendations, and just making sure that it's going to meet your needs from both like a actual like people holding it down and taking care of the space, and also from healers that, you know, that really know how to do the work. You know, that direct one-on-one work
how do you know?
Changes everything.
Because there's like, I know in Iquitos and I know in other places there is a lot of like healers who pretend to are healers, and then they just want to sell you some ayahuasca, and they're not taking care, and it can be actually really dangerous.
It can
How
be.
do you know?
Yeah, it can be. There's a lot of really unfortunate stuff happening in the medicine world. And so this is where I think, like, you know, going off of recommendations, reading, you know, there's a number of different Facebook pages that are a little bit more private now, where people will share their experience about places. But it's growing so much. I feel like a lot of people know somebody who's done something somewhere, you know? So even just to kind of, just to search in that way. I don't know. Do you have any other listen to yourself? Yeah. Listen to your instincts too. Yeah. Because I feel like we all, you know, and this is another part of doing plant medicine work, is becoming more in tune with those reactions inside your body when, you know, or the signs, you know, I get messages all the time from people who are like, and then this person I met knew you, and the connections are like all interlinked, and just to feel for yourself, like when you look at somebody's website, like how does it feel? Do you feel like a good feeling or not? Do you have any
Yeah,
Anything else to add?
It's more or less a lot of it. I think comes down to that of just being clear about what you want. You know, to know that and to put that out as the prayer. To say, I want, you know, to feel really supported. I want to feel really safe. I want somewhere that the people are able to understand and support the kind of things that I want to heal. And you know, and ask questions, put it out there with specifically like that, you know, and see what happens. But I think it's worth doing like due diligence before you just kind of, you know, or it can be. Maybe it's best that you just go, oh, you know what, I feel like that's it, and the guidance, you know. But if you feel inspired, there is no higher recommendation than someone you know and trust that tells you firsthand that it was great.
Yeah, that's how I went with it too, and it worked out pretty well.
Yeah.
And now I'm here.
Yeah.
With you guys in Costa Rica.
And you know, so there's a lot of places to go, and it's hard to tell anyone how that's going to land. But if you can, like Carolina said, find really like traditionally trained and good, like potent healers that are skillful and traditional, that have a very good heart, very good reputation. That's not like a whole bunch of smear stories. Maybe there's could be something to that if there's enough of them.
Yeah.
You know, that it's like a good reputation, feels like that heart that people are like, this person so solid. And then and it's good facilitation, good support, people that speak your language, that are loving and there to help to guide you. And then, you know, the location, the level of facilities and these kind of things, you know, and seeing, it's all of these different things, you know, and different things will suit different people.
Thank you. I think that helps a lot. My last question to you, what is your message to the world? What do you want the world to understand or to get deeper into?
This could be like a whole nother interview probably. But, yeah, I think it comes like down, especially during these times where there's so much opposition happening right now around so many things of kindness, you know, of kindness and coming back into, it's like, you know, this is so much of the work that we've done of like how you said, you see the way we are with our daughter, and it's because we've taken responsibility for ourselves, you know. So none of us are perfect, we'll make mistakes, but taking that responsibility and trying to understand that anytime there's conflict between people, we're all always seeing it through our own perspective, and to just know that however the person that maybe you're having conflict with is seeing it is very real to them, and like where that can be, we can step out of the need to be right or wrong, and just coming back into the frequency of love. Like I said, this is the biggest lesson that's been coming over and over again, is how much can we hold somebody still in a loving way, even if we don't agree. You know, even if we don't agree, that we can still be respectful of each other and honoring of each other.
Beautiful.
Yeah, and for me, one of my favorite quotes from a teacher that we love called Matt Kahn is that really struck me really profoundly. Is that you would think that the more you progress on the spiritual path, the more wise you would become, or the more knowledgeable you would become. But he says, in reality, the further you develop on your spiritual path, the more loving you become. And I think the ultimate power of healing is love. The ultimate power of God and creation is love, and that all of the, you know, the positivity is you know, there's extreme polarization of polar negative and polar positive, you know, and that positivity is just the most powerful force that there is out there, you know, and the negative can only just show you what is, it never goes anywhere good. So it's always going to just circle around until you look for something outside of it that feels more nourishing, which is positive, you know. So it's that opportunity, the duality, you know, is this falling out of love and out of grace and positivity, but it can only, it will never satisfy you. So it's always bringing you back into that love. And so there's people that will never drink ayahuasca and never meditate and never do any of these things that are such great masters, you know, whether they're our grandmothers or people that just have love in their heart, that are good to people, that are caring, that are aware and sensitive and supporting their families and their people, that are these amazing, beautiful masters. And it's not about that we, you know, climb the highest mountain and we sat with the most powerful shaman and we got this or that, you know. It's really just, we can walk our spiritual path without the assistance of anyone else, you know, and we can go out into nature, we can sit with nature, we can meditate, we can love ourselves, we can love other people, we can plant plants, we can do things that feel like they're sustainable, that if everyone did it, it would make a positive impact and change the world. We can take that responsibility for ourselves, and these are all of these steps that is really what you might integrate from the lessons you may gain from ayahuasca anyway. Is that it will show you where you can get to, and that can be the inspiration that you really needed to regain your faith in yourself and what's possible. But then it's up to you to walk that path, and that can be done in the most simple, basic, loving ways, to be present with each other, to stay in the real world, you know, not always on screens, but just with people, human interaction, and just those simple things are just there's such mastery in that too. So just sending our blessings to everyone that's listening and everyone that's watching, and we love you, and you're all beautiful, amazing, miraculous, divine miracles, and we're all here finding our way home together and supporting each other, and it's a big school that we're in. And
wow, thank you, I love you too, guys. Thank you so much for this beautiful interview. Thank you for the work that you're doing. Thank you for the dieta. Looking forward to the ceremony tonight, and thank you for sharing and shining some light on this very fascinating, mysterious, and so important topic.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having us, brother.
Schön, dass du dabei warst bei dieser Episode von 1000 First Steps. Wenn du dich über die Themen in dem Podcast gerne austauschen möchtest, dann lade ich dich herzlich ein, deine Gedanken unter dem aktuellen Post auf Instagram @jakob.horvath oder per E-Mail an mail@1000firststeps.com mit mir und der Community zu teilen. Ich freue mich immer sehr, wenn ich lese und höre, was der Podcast bei dir bewirkt, was er in deinem Leben zum Positiven verändert. Wenn das bei dir auch so ist, dann kannst du mithelfen, dass ihn noch mehr Menschen hören können, indem du ihn mit deinen Freunden teilst, mit deinen Bekannten, deinen Kollegen, zum Beispiel als Screenshot in deiner Instagram-Story. Es würde mir auch viel bedeuten, wenn du mir eine Rezension und eine positive Bewertung auf iTunes hinterlässt. Ich danke dir von ganzem Herzen. Wenn du auf dem Laufenden bleiben möchtest, dann freue ich mich, wenn du Teil der Community wirst und dich für meinen Newsletter anmeldest. Dort wartet auch ein kleines Willkommensgeschenk auf dich und Infos zu Podcast-Folgen, Meditationen, exklusive Updates zu Abenteuern aus meiner kleinen Welt und mehr. Den Link zum Newsletter findest du in den Shownotes und auf meiner Website 1000firststeps.com. Ich bin Jakob Horvath, Visionscoach, Meditationstrainer und Autor von Weltnah, raus aus der Komfortzone, rein ins Leben, das Buch über meine 14-monatige Weltreise mit wertvollen Impulsen für deine persönliche und spirituelle Weiterentwicklung. Danke, dass du hier dabei warst, dass du den Podcast hörst, dass wir ein paar Schritte gemeinsam gehen können. Wenn du mit mir persönlich arbeiten möchtest, wenn du gerne teilnehmen möchtest an meinen Online-Trainings und Mentoring-Programmen, dann schick mir ein E-Mail und wir vereinbaren ein kostenloses Kennenlerngespräch. Wir hören uns nächsten Mittwoch wieder, wenn du möchtest. Bis dahin wünsche ich dir nur das Beste. Alles Liebe und Namaste, dein Jakob.